Okay guys, who wants to see more Cadillac testing? We've got intake manifolds, carburetors, spacers, and mufflers. That's right, we even pulled the mufflers. In this video, we're going to take a look at the induction system and the exhaust system. We got a lot of tests run on our 500-inch Cadillac, the other guy's motor. If you haven't taken a look at parts 1 and 2, make sure you do. Check out part 1, it's right here. That's where we started out with basically a stock motor, and I say basically because it turns out it did have 4 60-over pistons. It had valve release in it, so the compression was near stock. It also had the roller rockers on it to replace the factory rockers, but good choice. Those factory rockers, not that good a deal. We started off with mild modifications in part 1. Check out that video. Headers, intake manifold, small camshaft. Then in part 2, if you haven't seen that, check out that video. We did a ton of testing. We did ported large chamber heads, ported small chamber heads, which is on there now. We did a cam upgrade. We tried to compare the HOLLEY and the Quadrajet, although I didn't do a very good job. So we're going to redo that test in this video. We've got different intake manifolds. We've got single plane, dual plane. We've got a Dominator. We even wanted to find out what happens when we pull the mufflers off of our headers. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm here with Courtney. He's going to tell me the super cool stuff that's different about the Cadillac Quadrajet compared to all the other lesser Quadrajets. Courtney, what do we got going on?
Okay. Along about 75 and 6, Cadillac added this system to their carburetors here. You notice you got your normal power valve, you know, that lifts your metering rods up. They added another
let me zoom in there, Courtney.
This other metering rod here, okay? And it's controlled by, if I can get it out of here.
All right. So there's only normally supposed to be one metering
That's
rod.
what
This one has 2, right?
Right. And you know, Chevrolet carburetors, a lot of them, you'll see this hump on the top.
Yeah.
But there's nothing underneath it. And if you remove
so that's false advertising.
Well, you open it up, there's just a plastic cup taking up the space in the bowl. But this unit here is like a aneroid bellows. It's for altitude compensating.
So inside there's a bellows, right?
Yes, yes. And like I say, when you change altitude, kind of like a fuel injected car, they change air fuel ratio and that.
So the bellows expand and contract based on altitude, right?
Right.
Okay.
This needle goes up and down, and of course this one here is reliant on vacuum. Okay. You know?
So when that needle goes up and down, there's a passage inside, right?
You see that little jet down in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zoom in there.
And there's an adjusting screw on top, and you have a limited amount of adjustment, but you can richen and lean them out a certain amount just by messing with this screw. But to do that, you got to knock that little cap out.
The fake cap on the other carburetors.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of a
And what size Quadrajet is this?
This is a 800 CFM.
Okay.
And
so we're getting ready to run this on the motor, right?
Right. We had to take it was running way lean previously when we were testing. So
so what'd you do to richen it up?
I put 4 steps larger jet in the primary.
Okay. So what jet was in there?
Was a 70, and we went to a 74.
Okay.
And
what about metering rods?
Metering rods. The primaries I left alone.
Okay.
And let me see if I can find the rods we had in it.
Find some wafer thin ones.
You see the fatter rod is what we had run in it.
Yeah.
Now we're putting a skinnier one, so it's gonna enrich in it.
Yeah.
And I raised the float level a little bit.
Very cool. And then what are we going to do to the fuel pressure?
We're going to raise it probably 5 pounds.
Nice.
Quadrajet seems to be able to take more fuel pressure than
the sissy Holleys.
Than the others. I don't know if it's where they put the fulcrum on the float or what, but it seems like you can get away with a lot more.
All right. Well,
I don't suggest it on the street, but if you're
but for the dyno, for what we're doing,
sure.
Should be nice.
Anything goes, right?
All right, let's get this thing back together, get it up on the dyno, and find out how well it does.
Okay.
500H Cadillac for this test was equipped with the high compression early model ported cylinder heads, our big 248 cam, and the Performer intake manifold from Edelbrock. After tuning up the Quadrajet, it produced 556 horsepower at 5,300 RPM. And 629 foot-pounds of torque at 4,100 RPM. See the torque peak up there? Now let's take a look and see how it did with the HOLLEY. After installation of the HOLLEY on our Performer intake manifold, the power output jumped slightly to 563 horsepower at 5,200 RPM. Peak torque checked in at 644 foot-pounds at 6,100. And a little more tuning on the Quadrajet probably could have realized very, very close numbers. I think everybody's got this right. I think the Quadrajet and the HOLLEY can make about the same power. I think it just takes a little bit more effort on the Quadrajet. What do you guys think? After running the HOLLEY on our 500-inch Cadillac, we decided to try a spacer. Now the spacer that we used was actually designed as an adapter to adapt a 4150 to a Quadrajet or a Quadrajet to a 4150, and it worked perfect because it was an open spacer that connected our HOLLEY directly to the opening in this Quadrajet style manifold. Equipped with a spacer, the combination produced 574 horsepower at 5,200 RPM and 648 foot-pounds at 4,100 RPM. So the spacer did help power. What do you guys think? Spacers? Yes or no? After running the spacer with the HOLLEY and the Performer intake, we were really excited about this next test because it was a single plane intake and it was a single plane intake with a Dominator. Unfortunately, this combination just didn't work out very well on this low RPM Cadillac. Equipped with the Dominator and the single plane intake, this combination produced 572 horsepower at 5,400 RPM. Torque was down to 624 foot-pounds at 4,300. Even equipped with the Dominator and the single plane, it just didn't make as much power as the spacer and the Performer intake with the dual plane. Now this was an interesting test because we also ran this same, although the intake was designed for a Dominator, we also ran it with a 4150 carburetor, but it did not like the 4150 carburetor. It made more power with the Dominator, but still couldn't catch up to the dual plane. What do you guys think? Dominators? Yes or no? Okay guys, I want you to let me know in the comments before I go over the data. What happens when we run a long tube header on a motor that's making 565 horsepower with a 3.5 inch collector and then neck that down to 3 inch and add mufflers? Is that restrictive to our 500 inch Cadillac motor? Now we've been running all this testing with the mufflers in place. Does that hurt the power? That's what we want to find out. So what we did was remove the muffler and the reducer. This is an interesting test because actually it has very little to do with exhaust flow and a lot to do with reflected waves and scavenging offered by the length of the exhaust. I've run this test many times and it works the same on the Cadillac. Check this out. If you just look at the peak power numbers, equipped with mufflers, this combination made 565 horsepower and 616 foot-pounds of torque. Once we remove the mufflers, the power output actually dropped slightly, 561 horsepower. The torque was up to 622 foot-pounds. And as you can see, if we look at the torque curve, it's easy to see. Equipped with the muffler, it made more low-speed torque, up to 3,000 RPM, then dropped down below not having a muffler, and then basically from 4,000 RPM all the way out, there was very little change in power. But the big change came down low from 2,000 RPM to 4,000 RPM. And the two traded torque in that range. So what would you do? The obvious choice is to have both. Now we just got to figure out a way to make that happen. Okay guys, what'd you think about our comparison on our 500-inch Cadillac? We run lots of tests. Single plane didn't do that well. And I think this is RPM specific. In this kind of RPM where we're running this motor where almost all of our tests are, the dual plane seems to be a better choice. I just wish there was another dual plane we could test. That performer works good, but I think that there's more power to be had with an even better dual plane, like an air gap. Come on, Brock, are you guys listening? The single plane didn't work out that well. The Dominator looks awesome, and the Dominator, when we tested it, I didn't show this in the video, but we compared that actually. We started off with a 4150 carburetor, then put the Dominator on there, and the intake manifold did like the Dominator better. It made more power, but neither one of them did well compared to the dual plane. Let me know what you guys think. What intake would you guys run? Most everybody, I think, would do a dual plane because of hood clearance or that performer works really well. What do you guys run on your Cadillac? We got more testing coming up. We got the aluminum heads on where we're doing some intake tests. We're running all kinds of stuff. It's about to get a camshaft. It's about to get crazy up in here. I'm Richard Holder, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. More and more Cadillac stuff coming up. After the aluminum heads, boost.